This video is brought to you by North American Aviation. Use code PLAYTRACK for a free Playmobile keyring with your next X15. Work is underway for the first full season of PlayTrack, but how did we get here? Well, where to begin? Let's try at the beginning. The beginning. Playmobile is a toy line developed since 1971 by Western German toy company Geobra. In 1974, the oil crisis made them look for a small toy that would require less plastic, and so Playmobil was given a limited release in the Netherlands. The success exceeded the company and retailers' expectations. Adults will not give these strangely shaped toys a second look, but children love them. Why? Because the Playmobil figure was designed based on children's drawing of people. Kids instinctively connected with the figure, their alter ego, to simulate themselves in the adult world. Another reason for the success is that Playmobil is based on a simplified version of the real world, with toys about every aspect of life in the contemporary Western Germany, and toys about the televised pop version of the past. In few years, the simple sets became more elaborate and many more themes were launched. Whatever a kid would see in the real world or on TV, he could explore by playing Playmobil. By the end of the 1970s, the toy was being exported, but produced under license all around the free world. There was even a Soviet clone made by Schenk in Hungary. I was born 3 days after the release of Scanners and 3 months before the release of Thief. At 3, I started watching TV, including Star Trek, when Mom was in the room. For my 4th birthday, I got my first Playmobil, and of course, it was a spaceship. Fast forward 40 years. Oops, too much. I was saying, fast forward to 2021, I was relaxing in the workshop with a company of YouTubers talking about the nefarious state of entertainment. I found that amusing as I checked out of the modern world in the 1990s, and it seems I was missing nothing. Then something happened.
Something wonderful.
In the sea of cynicism and discontent, 2 rays of hope made me see the light. Their names, Robert Meyer Burnett and Terence von Higginbottom.
Have you've heard of Playmobil, right? With the little figures.
Yeah. Of course, yeah.
The Playmobil USS Enterprise. This is pretty amazing.
That is beautiful.
Uh-huh. I know.
Beautiful. Its charm is off the charts.
Pensai che stesse scherzando, insomma. I was skeptical at first. I had no idea toy photography was a thing. But I saw the potential, and fortunately, there was a lot of it. Per fortuna, direi. Toy photography. A photograph captures the light in an instant of time. Most photos try to capture the best game the light is playing, but the more interesting photos are those that give us hints about what happened before the photo and the possibilities of what will happen after. Toy photography is very interesting because a toy is a facsimile of a real thing, and when shooting it, you create a facsimile of time. You pose it, light it, and position it in a way to suggest what has happened before and what will happen after the capture instant. One of the strongest memories from the few episodes of Star Trek I watched as an infant were the end credit freeze frames. Those shots were not in the episode I just saw. That told me there was a larger universe than what I just witnessed, and by providing just an instant of it, my mind was working at full steam to imagine the rest. When I got the Playmobile Enterprise, I took a couple of shots of it to share my joy on Twitter. While watching the shots I took, it became clear to me that I had to recreate the Star Trek end credits. First steps. Martino is a cheap bastard. He shot us on his makeshift table using his crappy phone, but at least he knew to overshoot at 4K so that he could later reframe it in 4x3. He used the Playmobil he had lying around, a couple of vintage houses, and the Playmobil Zool gatekeeper. In one shot, Scott had to double as the security guard. What were the backgrounds? If I remember correctly, they were just colored pieces of paper. He hooked up the Playmobil Enterprise to get the dome light on, then shot it to mimic the famous Enterprise in orbit. What did he use for post-production? I believe he did all the photo manipulation using GIMP, an open source alternative to Photoshop. After reframing the shot, he removed the defects, like dust, extended the set, and added facial expressions. Lastly, he did some color correction and added a film grain. Text and graphics were done in Inkscape, an open source alternative to Illustrator. Cheap bastard indeed. And the video was edited in iMovie on an antique iMac. Does he still have it? It belongs in a museum. Pre-production. The production of a Scale War episode began with the writing of a script that described story, action, and dialogues. Then I drew a simple storyboard to help me list and plan each shot and set up how to do the visual effects. Once I knew what I needed, I cleaned the toys, built the sets, and wrote the graphics. The vintage toys require a lot of careful scrubbing because they are on average 30 years old and have been stored under a protective layer of brown dust. But that was not the worst part. Every episode got bigger with more bigger sets and more elaborate action sequences and more special effects. The first episode was shot entirely on the Enterprise bridge. The second episode was shot on 3 Masters of the Universe playsets that were digitally extended using panoramic jazz from the 1983 Filmation cartoon. Initially, I tried to have the final shots in camera to speed up production, but the limitations were too much, and I ended up having to manually Photoshop each single photograph. The G.I. Joe episode required the building of custom sets to reflect the aesthetic of the 1983 Sunbow cartoon that inspired the script. From that point, each episode allowed me to combine my passion for set design with my passion for model making, even if at a small scale and a simple grade. There were 3 types of sets: fully built sets, flat backgrounds, and virtual sets. The fully built sets were made of cardboard that was either painted or covered in print and textures. In some cases, just the objects in the sets were built, and the walls were made of printed paper. The walls were either drawn in Inkscape or obtained by editing still frames for the source film. Some sets were designed to resemble the sets from the film and cartoons, like the Enterprise Conference Room, the Death Star Conference Room, and the G.I. Joe headquarters. Other were original works created following the mood of the source material, like the Death Star Corridor and the Enterprise Lounge, based on a concept art by Andrew Probert for Star Trek the Motion Picture and adapted to fit the 1960s Enterprise aesthetic. For smaller spaces with little to no camera movement, a simple flat background was used, like the Enterprise corridors, the Cobra space shuttle, and the Enterprise transporter room. Virtual sets were used where the scale or complexity were beyond my budget. For example, the Cobra Space Shuttle launch complex was made of freezed frame from Moonraker, with the toy digitally inserted. Same with the Guardian of Forever, where I used freeze frame from the Star Trek episode, digitally removed the actors and replaced them with the toys. Principal photography.
We had to shoot while the set were being built and demolished around us. Thanks to the high professionalism, everything worked smoothly. We will all be called on set, and all we have to do was standing perfectly still. A couple of times he shot videos. That was the hardest part, standing perfectly still while he created movement. Accidenti, fate attenzione!
E mi dispiace, Leonardo, il tirannosauro è scappato ancora. Editing. Each photo is reframed, clean, color corrected, and modified using GIMP. The pictures are then imported into a video editing software. For the epilogue, I try to emulate the Star Trek third season film quality, with high contrast, rich blacks, and film grain. The first 2 episodes were edited using iMovie. It was a great way to learn the basics of editing, but was limited to 2 layers of video. Therefore, for the Star Wars episode, I built a custom 12 CPU Linux machine to run Keyden Live, an open source video editor with nearly unlimited capabilities. Each episode grew in complexity. The prologue was made of 100 files, the Masters of the Universe episode was made of 300 files, the G.I. Joe episode was made of 800 files, the Star Wars episode had to be split and totaled 1,500 files. Visual effects. The entire production used only one special effect, a smoke machine called Martino. The drawback was the ash that had to be digitally removed for nearly every shot. All other effects were visual, done after principal photography by manipulating and combining the shots with elements designed in GIMP and Inkscape. For example, the graphics for the on-set screen were superimposed to the frame, scaled and distorted to fit the perspective. When the physical set was too small, the missing parts were cut out of the frame and a new background was added. The Enterprise bridge ceiling was hand-drawn for each shot and added over the original photograph. When a window would show a moving panorama, like the warping stars, the windows were cut out of the image so that a moving star video could be played behind it. I only had a forward-facing moving star animation, but I discovered that it contained all the other directions. I just had to zoom in on a part of it. For example, the left part of the animation looks like it's being seen from the right. The top part is being seen from the bottom. For reverse shots, I just ran the animation in reverse. The most complicated shot was the tracking on the Enterprise lounge, where I had to use a combination of rotoscoping and chroma keying to empty the original windows and make the background stars animation move around to mate it with the direction of the camera point of view. The transporter effect was achieved by shooting the same picture with and without the Playmobile. I then created a transporter pattern cut out of the Playmobile shapes. These elements were used to create 3 pictures, one before the transport, one with the transporter at work, and one after the transport is complete. By fading these shots into each other, I got the transporter effect. Phasers and other static rays were hand-drawn and then superimposed to the shot. Again, I created different shots for the different stages of the rays and faded those pictures together. Moving laser fire was drawn in different shapes, length and directions. Those images were then superimposed to the better shots and moved around to create the effect. Since I lacked a large green screen and any chroma keying skills, I had to shoot the Enterprise as static pictures, cut them out, and then move and zoom them around. For the Star Wars episode, I got a large green screen and tried again, hoping to use the camera movement to create perspective. Unfortunately, the hand movement and the large focal length of the phone made the Enterprise look small and shaky, and I reverted back to the static shots. For some scenes, I used shots from the film that I edited by masking, replacing, or adding elements, like the Enterprise shuttle in the Death Star landing bay, or the Tiderium shuttle approach to the Death Star. Sound. If you haven't lost your hearing already, you may have noticed I have no idea on how to talk into a microphone, how to talk in English, nor how to do accents. It was easy to mimic a cartoon character, who already is an exaggerated voice, but much more difficult it is to imitate an actor's real voice without it becoming a caricature. After a couple of episodes, I settled for my own version of most characters, trying hard to give every voice a little variation to help differentiate them. Originally, the concept was not to have voices at all. Mannaggia la Madonna, Vincenzo! E adesso come lo spostiamo? I'm talking here! Perdonami, James, facciamo il più piano possibile. Anche tu, però. Ma vai, Mona, va? For every location, there was an ambient soundscape made with recorded backgrounds, or using music that fits the mood. The score was made with a combination of original Star Trek TV series scores and music from the episode, specific cartoon or film. One important aspect was the sound design. Every action, every object, everything happening on screen had to have a sound, especially since the image was still and the illusion of action and its timing had to be suggested by the sound. Are you done, James? We better leave before the T-Rex wakes up. Well, I guess that's it for now. Keep dreaming.